Welcome back to our restoration project. Today we're going to install our front fenders. So in our previous video we just installed our front bumper and had our front fenders just mocked up with 2 bolts only, one up front and one in the rear here, just for the purposes of bumper alignment only. So what we're trying to do is get the bumper left to right adjustment centered on the 2 fenders. Not much adjustment can be done with the fenders. Everything has to be worked out through the bumper. So we like everything now. We're all nice and tight up front there with the bumper. So now it's time to install our fenders. So today we're going to go over all the necessary seals, hardware, and all the adjustments needed to install front fenders complete. Also today we're going to go over one small, quick, and easy performance upgrade to our Koni struts. So before we get started, let's just go ahead and take a look at the hardware and seals laid out on the bench, get a basic understanding of what's required to put this together, and then we'll go ahead and get into it. Alright, so here's a basic overview of our hardware set needed to install our front fenders. So this will be for both fenders, and most of this is original, just refinished. For our fender washers, I put a slurry coat of our favorite body seam fill in there, and that seems to work real good. That's going to give us a lot of grip on the textured undercoating. So originally these had like a felt impregnated washer on the backside, which just kind of gets destroyed when you take them apart. You could also use like a rubber inner or a plastic inner, but I think this color here, this is going to work real good for that. So I've coated all those and they're dry and ready to go. 4 inner speed nuts there I had to replace, didn't quite make the refinishing process, and then the inner fender hardware that's going to bolt up to our jam. Also, we're using the ribbon tape seal for the inner fenders from Porsche. Probably you could use a substitute. We'll take a look at that here in a little bit when we get ready to install that. So that's pretty much it for the hardware. And then we have our bumper seals there, and then also our antenna. We'll have to work that out and extend a little bit on this antenna here. This is just a little bit shorter than my original. And then also we have our fender to body seals, part number on those guys. Okay, let's go ahead and move on now to our Koni strut modification. So a couple months back I had a viewer reach out. His name is Matthew, and Matthew was referencing video 45, which is our Koni strut assembly video and installation on the car. And so the question Matthew had was should he be adding fluid to the chamber, because he noticed in that particular video we didn't add any fluid. So I thought it was a really good question. I didn't know the answer to that, so I thought let me reach out to Koni and see what they say from the tech department. Also guys, please bear with me today. The background racket you're hearing is our strong winds we're having here in Las Vegas today, so a little bit noisy here in the booth. But anyways, back to our Koni question we have for their tech department. So I sent an email to the tech department asking them what we should do here in this particular case. Matthew was saying that he'd read on the forum some guys are adding fluid to these chambers, putting transmission fluid in there or fork oil, or even in some cases antifreeze. So I went ahead and asked the question to the tech department, and this is what they said. Let's go ahead and blow this up here. You can pause that and reference that. So the particular set of instructions I got with my kit did not include this in the kit. And actually the instructions that come with Koni struts are pretty vague to begin with anyways. So the correct answer, whether you have something like this included in your instructional packet, depending on your struts or not, this is an optional type of performance upgrade you may or may not want to do to your strut housing. And so really all it is nothing hydraulic that's going to be taking place inside the chamber. Really what you have here between your new strut inside your housing, you have a little bit of void space, a little bit of air space in there. And so what they're doing is they're just adding some fluid in there, and this helps to cool the shock under extreme use. So let's just say you have a performance car and getting a lot of heavy track use. This would be helpful in cooling the shop and keeping the dampening consistent. It doesn't have any dampening attributes to it, so you're not going to gain anything there, but it will help in cooling. In my particular application, something like this is definitely never needed. It's probably hardly ever going to see any track time and very little street time. But we're going to go ahead and do the modification today just to show you how to do it. What we're going to do, we're going to drill a small hole in the side of the outer chamber. We're going to take this syringe and draw 50 milliliters of ATF fluid and inject it into the side of that hole and then seal the hole. Real easy way to do it. Your strut is going to be in the upright position, so really very favorable to do it after it's installed. So we'll need to be up on jack stands with the front wheels pulled off and our strut towers fully extended. Let me go ahead and mask this area off so we don't get any metal shavings on any of our work. Okay, so I've gone ahead and already done the passenger side and ended up having to drill 2 holes, one in the front, one in the back. And the reason that is because the strut inside the housing may or may not be in the center of the housing for some reason. It's either sitting to the front or sitting to the rear of the housing. If it's sitting right up against the hole you're drilling, you're not going to be able to get your fluid in there. You'll have to drill it in from the backside. So pretty much going to have to drill 2 holes just to make sure you can get that needle in there. I've already drilled one in the back here. Let's go ahead and drill the front and see what that looks like. Okay, that's 20 milliliter. And that makes 50 milliliter. Okay, well that was pretty straightforward, real simple to do. So now I'm just going to peel everything away, take some denatured alcohol and a paintbrush and really clean this area up good. And also inside that inner hole there, make sure we don't have any oil residue at all left in there. And then we'll go ahead and seal it up with our body seam sealer. Okay, so we got everything cleaned up and sealed up here. So I'm going a little bit bigger than our hole just to create a broader footprint for a better seal. And this is what I'm using here for the sealer. So we definitely want to thank Matthew for reaching out and bringing that to our attention. Real nice upgrade there, and definitely something you'll want to do if you've got a track car or you drive the car fairly hard. Okay, so that takes care of our struts. Let's go ahead and move on to our front fender seals. All right, looking at our front fender seals, so we're going to have to notch out some area. It's going to have to work around this little bit of weld buildup here on the body. So that's going to tuck under there and flush up here. And then we're going to mark here. This is about the location where our fender is going to make contact with the front of our body chassis here. It's going to be about there, best I can tell. I'd rather be a little bit long here if we can trim that rather than being short and having a gap here. Let's go ahead and mount that on and see what that looks like. All right, so we got it stuck in position there. It's just a guess how much distance is on here. But as far as I can tell, that's pretty close. If we have a gap here, we can use some of our body seam sealer to fill that in. If we're a little long, we can trim it. And then that's what she'll look like from the top side. And then the bottom side. And then the other fender is set up just the same way. I've already installed all the speed nuts just to speed things up here a little bit. Let's go ahead and put one on just to show you how they clip in there. So the flared side goes to the inside, and I'm just using a screwdriver to flare it. Just putting a little leverage on there. And just kind of walking it in. Right about there. So let's go ahead now and prepare the inside of the fenders. Driver side sets up a little bit different than the passenger side. Let's start on this side first and see what's involved with that. So starting with the horn, we just want to make sure it's positioned and aiming towards our horn grill. And then temporarily we're going to need to bend this back out of the way just so we can bring our fender in here. So if you order out a new Hirschman replacement antenna, you're basically just going to get a bunch of parts. Some of these are going to be nickel plated and some of them will be chrome plated, and absolutely no instructions how they stack up. But after playing with it for a little while, I've got kind of an idea how I think it should go together. Let's take a look at that and see how that works. Starting with the nickel finish first, I'm going to put those underneath the car. This one has the smallest inside diameter. I'm going to put that on there first so that seats down and locks in at the bottom there. And then we'll take the next nickel one and sit on top of that. And that should give you some adjustment for fender direction there. And then after that, we've got this thick mount type piece. That should lock underneath the fender hole, and all that can swivel and rotate according to what we need there. And then on top of the fender should be a rubber base, followed by the thick chrome ring that'll sit inside the base. And then you'll have a large diameter hole chrome ring that'll go on top of that. And then you'll have a small diameter chrome ring. Hopefully you'll have a small diameter chrome ring. My kit didn't have one, so I managed to salvage the one from my original, and then your locking cap will go on top and cinch everything down. So I think that's how that goes together. Once we get it all put into place, it'll make more sense then. Our fender seal to body, these are going to squeeze down in from the top after our fenders are in place but not tight. So they're going to drop down from the top position there, and you can see these notches here are going to work around our holes as we push it down in there. Also, we've got a downward rake here, and that rake is to lay in this area here. So what we're going to do, we're going to run our ribbon tape, stop it right at this edge here, and then pick it back up and trim it to this shape right here. So getting started with our sealer tape, I'm just running out 2 complete runs down the jamb and then also down the body. And this is what I have left over from what Porsche sends us. And my guess is, although it's very difficult to understand in the manual what they're talking about, but my guess is it's very thin. And so we would put one on the body here, and then one on the fender here, and then when we stick them together, right, it kind of acts like a contact cement. They'll stick together really well. Very thin. I think you really need both of them to make up a good sized gasket. And we have plenty of protrusions and indents inside the fenders for this stuff to be squished out and conform to whatever we need. So I'm going to say one on each side is going to be the way to do this. And you can see now there's no way to get that apart. Real nice seal there. Our blue ribbon is from Porsche, and this would be like an alternative. This is just basically a generic putty tape, 1/8 by 1 inch, and we're going to be using this on our rear quarter windows to install them. But you could use something like this also. This particular one seems to be a little bit more sticky than the brand from Porsche. I'm not sure what brand that is, but probably less sticky is going to be the way to go. So even though this is going to be considerably more expensive, I'm going to say that's probably the best way to do these fenders. So temperature in the booth now is about 78 degrees. And my guess is on an extremely cold day or a hot day, this would not be fun to do. If it's too hot, it's going to become too sticky. And if any of this sticks together, you won't be able to get it apart. But normal room temperature is going to be the best. If it's too cold, it's going to be too rigid and not going to want to stretch out properly. And then the holes, I'm just trimming these out. And then for the fenders, I'm just placing it on in one strip and then trimming off the speed nut area with a pair of scissors. Okay, so we got both sides all set up now. About 2 hours to get through all of this. Let's just take a look here and see how we did. So here's our driver's side, coming down the inner fender. And then passenger side. And then driver's side, fender to jamb. And then making sure we're set back there for a fender to body seal. And then passenger fender. And then passenger inner jamb. Let me loosen that up a bit. All right, working that in there. The rocker panel looks pretty good. And then next we're going to feed our wire harness up through the light bucket and roll this guy back into place. A little rubber grease on our connection here is going to make that slide in a little bit easier. Top and bottom. And then on the jam, we're just tightening them down until they stop. I don't want to overdo it. We still have to set the door in place, and might have a little adjustment there. And then also we need to install our horn grills so we can align our hood. Okay, so now I think we got pretty much a complete package. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to close the trunk lid, look the thing over very carefully, and do all my micro adjusting at this point. So we're going to tune up the hood with the fenders. We're going to dial in the bumper with the fenders, our horn grills. Everything kind of dials in together at this point. Let me look the thing over, play with all the adjustments, and then we'll take a close-up look and see how we did. Okay, so the dialing in process, about 5 hours to get through everything complete to where I liked it, and I'm happy with everything. So one of the problems I ran into, when we cinch down our fender nuts here, what's going to happen is your putty sealant is going to ooze out between the seam in there, and it's going to bulge on your rubber molding here. So what you'll have to do, you need to get a plastic tool between the fender and the molding and dig that out while it's still soft. If it dries firm in there, it's going to be tough to get it out. You could damage your paint, so you want to pay attention to that. You'll see the bulges in here. It's got to go somewhere, and that's where it ends up going. And then our rubber gas filter next. So this one slides into position fairly easily if you use a little rubber grease, just seating that in there. And then also same thing with our metal retainer clip. And then our antenna. So the only thing I really had to do here was eliminate a couple pieces off the bottom there, just so we could have a little bit more length on our threads to nut that down. But other than that, it seems to situate in there real nice and comfortable. Not going to have any issues with that. And our inside fender nuts there. And then a finished look inside our driver's side fender. Inside fender to door jamb. And driver's side fender alignment. Passenger side fender alignment. All the passenger side inside fender business. And then our passenger side fender to jamb. You can see all that putty oozing out there. Really makes a nice seal. Fender to body seal. Driver's side seal. And then our rubber seal transitions and horn grill. Yeah, you can see here they're close, but not exactly the same profile. Really two different moldings coming together there. So all our wiring now is pulled through and in correct locations. And then our inside fender screws here. So these will all torque down until they bottom out. Fairly good torque on those, but it is possible to over torque them. So you got to be careful for that. However, when you draw them down like a sequential order, you will definitely know when you've reached the bottom, and that's probably the best place to stop right there. If you keep going, it is possible to strip a speed nut. Alright, let's close the hood and see what she looks like. Alright, looking at our finished hood adjustments. And the thing with our gaps, we're trying to get even gaps and try to be flush with our panels. Okay, so there she is. About one full day to install the fenders, and about another 5 additional hours fussing and fooling with it, just dialing everything in, getting all our gaps to line up, all our seals and everything worked out. Nothing that can't be worked out. It's just a matter of playing with everything until you like it. So the one thing I would recommend if you're going to do your fenders is be real mindful of your sealant tape. It's very temperature sensitive. Also, once you peel and adhere to your body panels, you really need to move through it in the same day. If you peel it, stick it on there, let it dry up overnight and come back the next day, it's probably not going to be very supple, and it's not going to work for you. You could have a real mess on your hands. So timing is very essential. Peel it, work with it, get through it in one fell swoop. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.